Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel V-Running. My name is Shalim, and in today's video we're going to talk about how to buy your first pair of running shoes. We're going to cover why you need a good pair of running shoes. I'll discuss some of the terminology that you'll encounter when you're on the market for your first pair of shoes. You're going to understand words such as cushion and stack height, neutral or stability. What do these mean? How do they apply to you? As well as a very brief touch up on what type of foot you have and why certain shoes would suit you better. So with that being said, let's get right into it. This video is aimed at those of you just starting your running journey. You could be building up towards a 5 kilometer or for anything all the way up to a full marathon. And you're now, as I said, on the market for a new pair of running shoes. So let's start with why you need a good pair of running shoes. It's very important that you start your journey properly with a good pair of shoes. As you increase your weekly mileage, even if you're walking a lot, running is very different from walking. The type of impact on your legs, the muscles that you activate is very different from just walking. So even for those of you doing 10,000 steps a day or more, as you start running, you're exposing yourself to a very different type of impact and injury, potential injuries. It's important to start this off right. So the first bit of information we need is what type of runner are you? What type of foot strike do you have? And this is either neutral or stability. Neutral runners, which forms the vast majority of people, land on the heel and outer aspect of the foot first, whereas stability runners tend to land on the heel and inwards before the foot starts to roll. If you are in either of these categories and you get a shoe from the opposite category, that can instantly lead to pain in the joints and potential injuries in the future. Once we've established whether you're a neutral or a stability runner, you can then go into the type of shoe. So how do you figure out whether you're neutral or stability? I would strongly recommend going to a running shop or a specialist running store for this, and they'll put you on a treadmill or have you run on these pressure sensitive mats where they have computers that read the pressure points and establish what sort of foot strike you have. Great. The next thing I want to touch upon are what are the different parts of a shoe or the different terminologies that may be used in the shoe store. So if we very briefly touch upon different parts of a shoe, we have the outsole, which is this pink part you see here. That's the rubber, that's the part that gives you grip. It's the part of the shoe that first touches the ground. We then have the midsole, which is this chunky aspect here, running from back to front. This is the most important part of the shoe in terms of the feel and the ride that you get. And then you have the outer of the shoe, or the upper of the shoe, which is mostly for comfort and ventilation. It's the part of the laces that locks in. In some cases, you have plated shoes where this midsole is not just a single layer of foam, but it has some form of plate. It could be carbon fiber or polymer running through there. Chances are your first shoe probably will not have a plate, so it's just important to understand those three aspects of the shoe. Now, there's different terminologies that will be used in a shoe store when you go to look for a shoe. They'll talk about things such as stack height, which is the amount of cushion you have in the heel and in the forefoot. They may use the word drop. Drop is the difference in the amount of stack between the heel and the forefoot. Now, most shoes typically have more stack at the back than at the front, and the drop is the difference between those. The next point to consider is what type of running shoe do you need. And there's different categories of running shoes. You have your daily trainers, which is a kind of jack of all trades, do it all kind of shoe. If you only have to buy one shoe, that's the type of shoe to get. You then have maximum cushion shoes that you'd use on recovery days or rest days, perhaps for your longest runs when you're just building up your mileage at the start, and you got your plated shoes, which are for your races. So I would assume those of you reaching for your first pair of shoes are looking at something in the category of a daily trainer. That's the first type of shoe I was recommended. It's what I would recommend to anyone else starting out as well. A daily trainer, like I said, is a kind of do-it-all shoe. You can do your long runs in it. You can do your daily kind of shorter runs that you're doing just to rack up the weekly mileage. You could use them for fast paces, slow paces. It's the kind of shoe that does it all. And those of you starting out are probably only going to have one pair of shoes. That one pair should be a daily trainer. Now, from my own experience, I would recommend that the daily trainer should have a bit of firmness to it. You don't want a very soft shoe as you start out in your running journey. you want to add those into your shoe rotation later on. That firmness helps activate your muscles a little better when you're running. It helps build the muscles as you start off on your running journey and get your legs better prepared for that impact. Then you can incorporate a bit of softness in for comfort later on in your running journey with the real long runs or when you start developing your own shoe rotation. Great. One final aspect to consider is what type of foot do you have? Is the base of your foot flat? Does it have a high arch or a low arch? Now, that's relevant because of the type of insole that you need to use in your shoe. Most running shoes, regardless of neutral or stability, will come with an insole that's pretty much flat. It doesn't do much to support the arch over here. You'll see that even though there's a bit of a rise to the insole here, it's very soft and pliable, and it won't do much in the way of resisting impact to the. So for those of you who are flat-footed or have a low arch, you can probably get away with the stock insoles that come in shoes. But for those of you who have a high arch in your foot, you may want an insole that supports that high arch, something that's got a little bit of firmness or structure to this medial aspect of the foot here, that when you step, it can help support that anatomy of your foot. Now, what would happen is if you have a high arch foot and you do a lot of mileage in a shoe that's not giving you the support from underneath, you can develop something called plantar fasciitis, which is pain in that aspect of your foot, in the band of muscle extending from the front, from the ball of the foot all the way up to the heel. So very important to determine what type of arch you have. Again, a good running store should be able to advise you on that. A physiotherapist may be able to advise you on that. Now, the exact type of insole to buy, again, it's quite important that you see a running store for that. They come in many different materials, different hardness or softness. Let an expert recommend you on that, but you can just establish whether you need one or not. Great, so I'm going to tell you what type of running shoe I started with, and the fact that I still use it as well is this guy here. This is a Saucony Ride 15. This is a shoe made for neutral runners, and it's a daily trainer. It comes in the category of do-it-all kind of daily trainer. Now, this was recommended to me by a shoe shop in Sweden, and I just stumbled across that shop by chance, walking the streets of a town called Malmö, and I had just done a half marathon about 3 weeks prior to that, still suffering from pain at the base of my foot, so I hadn't done any runs in between. And when I saw this shoe shop, I thought, let me go in there and ask them, why would I be having that pain? And I happened to be wearing the shoes that I used to do, that I used for the half marathon. And that's first mistake right there. Keep your running shoes for running only. Try not to use them for walking around in your everyday stuff. They wear out a lot faster. It's harder to track the mileage in them, and your constant weight will affect the cushioning over time. So try and keep your running shoes separate from everyday walking around shoes. So the running shop in Sweden told me straight away that I'm a neutral runner with a high arch in the foot, and I've been using a shoe or an insole made for flat arch people. I was also using a shoe with very short stack height up until that point, and that wasn't giving me the protection I needed for these longer runs. So after putting me on a treadmill and seeing what type of runner I am, they recommended me this shoe here, the Saucony Ride 15. Now, they did give me a few different neutral running shoes from other brands. If I recall properly, they gave me something from Brooks, there was a Nike, and a couple of other different brands. And we settled on the Saucony because I like the color. It also just felt right for my foot in terms of the width of this part here compared to some of the other shoes. So even though you may establish that you're a neutral runner with a high arch or a low arch, there is some variation between the brands. Some may fit you better than other brands. Those of you with narrow feet or wide feet might get comfort or discomfort from particular shoes. So try on as many as you can before you settle on buying the shoe there. Now, this pair of Sauconys here, I got them last year in the month of July, and I used them in the build-up to the New York Marathon, which was in November of the same year. So that's roughly 4 months from the time I got the shoe. And this was my only pair of shoes that I used for the training and for the marathon itself. And I used it a little more after that. And I've done over 500 kilometers in these pair of shoes. I absolutely love them. I have since added a couple of pair of shoes to my running rotation. I now have a maximum cushion shoe as well. And I'm just dabbling into the world of plated shoes. I got myself a Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. It's not a carbon shoe, but it has a nylon plate going through it. But I still use these shoes for the bulk of my running. Excellent. So to wrap things up, I hope this video has done a good enough job of telling you what are the different types of running shoes available out there, regardless of brand, but the generic terminology in the running industry. What type of runner are you? Neutral stability, what sort of odds do you have in your foot? And I can't stress the importance of that first running shoe, getting a good one that's suited to you. I would also say that it's important to, at least for your first pair, try and find a running store, even if it means getting out of your town and going nearby. But find a place where you have experienced people who have a variety of shoe brands available to them. So there's no bias in the store. Don't go to, for example, a Nike or an Asics or a Saucony store, but go to a shop that sells several different brands where they can let you try all the different shoes. The shop should ideally have a treadmill, or at least a person who can see how you run. It could be in a long corridor or outside, but you need someone to assess your running gait, your running technique. Finally, support that running store. There may be better deals out there on Amazon or on different shoe websites, but for the first shoe, if you're going to use the shop to do all this assessment for you, support the guys and buy that first shoe from them. If you really like that shoe and a good deal for that thing comes up online, by all means go and buy that second or third pair from whichever retailer you wish to. But the first pair, when someone's taken the time to help assess and plan everything for you, support the shop and do buy it from them. It does take a lot of time to buy this pair of running shoes. And a quick tip for those of you who've made it this far into the video, it takes time to do this shoe assessment or your running gait assessment. It can take upwards of 45 minutes to an hour. You also want to try and get to the running store, preferably later in the day when you've been up on your feet already, because when it comes to a marathon and you're subjecting yourself to those high mileages, potentially in hot weather, your feet do tend to swell up a little bit. Your shoe size may differ from what it would be when you wake up first thing in the morning. It's not uncommon for people's feet to get up to half a size longer or wider later in the day as opposed to first thing in the morning. So if you can try a running shoe in as close a way to simulate those type of conditions, which would be later in the day, you'd probably get a better fit or a better assessment, a better feel of the shoe that's suited to you. Having said that, you may want to make an appointment with the running store so that they're expecting you later in the day. That's also when most people just walk in randomly when people have had their lunch and now they're out and about shopping. So try and book an appointment for that shoe fit out. It does help and guarantee that you get the time that you need when you're in the shop. Thank you very much. I hope this information is useful. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments down below, and see you in the next one.